Hi everybody, happy Wednesday. It's so good to see you. I wish I could be seeing you. I know you guys can see me, but I can't see you. I wish we had some sort of a Zoom thing where I could see all of you guys. On Monday when we were talking about, we made homemade pasta. And we started talking about what food is made of. We're starting to talk about nutrition and the human body. And over 3,000 of you guys watched that. It's so cool. I wish I could see 3,000 little faces so I could see how you're doing. But anyway, we are on, believe it or not, we are on episode 22 of this long duration of quarantine fun science stuff. I'm actually wearing my how many ways can you wear hair that's getting too long, but we're just gonna have fun with this. If you've missed any of the previous videos, a lot of these are on a playlist on the Hip Homeschool Moms page. You just go to the video section and you can watch those. If you've missed some of the ones we did before, I did some from my personal page, Sherry Seligson, but I put everything up on a YouTube channel, Sherry Seligson, so you guys could go there and see all of them if you wanted as well. But I'm just so glad that you're here with us, and we're going to continue our discussion and discussions about science stuff, and we're talking more about nutrition, the human body, and I wanted to kind of segue into digestion because I think that's going to be fun. And while I'm doing this, I'm actually going to do the part of the craft now, which we'll come back to at the end because it takes some time and it involves a little bit of painting, and I want the paint to dry. So we're going to actually use 4 empty water bottles, and I want to cut my water bottle up first. I'm going to cut just a section here. I'm going to use I just have a little, this is a pokey thing. It's got a tiny little knife on it to start my cut. And then I'm going to use my scissors just to cut the pointed top off. I'll hold it up for you in a second so you can see. And then we're going to do the same thing at the bottom. I want to cut off, maybe right about here. So I'm just getting that started with the little knife, and then I'm cutting here. This is something maybe mom or dad needs to do. And then I'm also going to cut one more piece from the body part of this, the center part, along the middle. And I'm cutting a slit. So let me show you the 3 pieces that I made from the bottle. I have the bottom part of the bottle here, and I have the top part of the bottle. And then from the middle, I just cut some of the center section, and I cut it open like this. And what I'm going to do is, I don't need this other piece. I'm going to paint these on the inside with some white paint. This is just plain old acrylic paint. And I'm doing this so it's easier to see once we've done, when you see what we've made with this. And so I'm just painting on the inside, inside of my water bottle white, because we're actually going to make a mouth. So these are going to be the teeth, believe it or not. All right, so, and I wanted to paint these. You don't need a really heavy coat of paint unless you want to make this super fancy. I'm just going to paint a light coat of white paint on the inside of all of these so it has a chance to dry a bit before we put it together. So I don't take up a ton of your time as well. But we're talking about digestion, and believe it or not, digestion begins in the mouth. When we eat food, our body starts to digest the food almost immediately. There's different kinds of digestion, 2 major types. One type of digestion is chemical digestion, where the food particles are broken down chemically. We've talked about chemical reactions before versus physical reactions, but the chemical reaction is where the food molecules are broken down. And then physical digestion is where the food particles are broken up into smaller parts. And so we're going to talk about both of those and how our body does that, beginning in our mouths. And so I want to talk about our mouths and what our mouths do in digestion. So I'm almost done painting, and yes, this is kind of messy and it's getting all over my hands, but you know, that's the fun of science. I like messy stuff. Let's talk about a little bit what's going on. I want to have you try something if you have a chance to do this. So I've got my 3 pieces painted. I'm going to set this aside for right now. And think about when you eat food. What do you do when you put a piece of food in your mouth? You start to chew it, don't you? And do you notice that you start to produce saliva, which is a liquidy feeling that moistens the food? The whole purpose of those 2 things, chewing the food and adding saliva to it, is part of digestion. And the first thing I want you to do is if you have a plain cracker or a piece of plain bread. Crackers kind of work a little bit better. But if you take a piece of cracker and you just put a small bit in your mouth and chew it, and then get it nice and broken up, and with lots and lots of saliva, and then let it sit there for a little bit in your mouth. Notice how it tastes. It's going to start tasting sweet. Okay, I want you to try that. It's really kind of interesting to do because what you're doing is this is made up of carbohydrates, complex carbohydrates. And carbohydrates are just long chains of sugar molecules. We talked about that on Monday. And as you are chewing, you are adding saliva to the carbohydrates. And the saliva has enzymes in it that breaks down carbohydrates into sugars. And so you start tasting the sugar when you eat this and let it sit in your mouth. So I'm gonna put a small piece in my mouth. Obviously, I shouldn't talk with my mouth full, but I'm gonna do this and I'm just gonna just chew it really well and then let that sit on my tongue. And notice that it starts to taste a little sweeter and a little sweeter. Now, if you have saltine crackers, those are actually better to do this with because the saltines have no sugar. Some crackers have sugar already a part of them. And so I'm just plugging in something for later. And so anyway, when we eat something in our mouths do two things for our digestion. They break it down physically and they break it down chemically. The physical breakdown is using our teeth and actually our tongue, which helps maneuver it around. And then the saliva that's produced while we're chewing starts the chemical digestion right away, specifically working on carbohydrates and breaking them down into sugars. Okay, and I want to talk a little bit about that. It's important because we are talking about that to talk about our teeth and what our teeth do. Our teeth are beautifully designed to do all of the eating and the chopping and the physical breakup of all different kinds of foods. We are technically called omnivores. There's three types of eaters, and there's herbivores that eat plants and plant materials only. There are carnivores, which feed on meats only, and then there's omnivores that feed on both. And they have unique teeth shapes that suit those types of eating. And we have three different types of tooth shapes that I'm going to show you in a minute. But our teeth are very hard and very strong, and they're strengthened by something called calcium, which is why we need to take care of our teeth because we don't have a lot of them. We don't replace them often like sharks do. If you remember we talked about sharks. So what I want to show you first is, we did this a while ago, but this is another application of this. I took a raw egg and I soaked it overnight in vinegar. This is just plain white vinegar. And it ate away the calcium carbonate shell. Can you see that? This is actually still the egg. What's left is the soft membrane that is holding that raw egg. If I squish it too hard, I'm gonna have a big mess. But you can see how it's very, very soft. And that's because vinegar is a mild acid, and acids will break apart certain chemicals chemically, a chemical reaction, and that's what it did to the calcium carbonate shell of the egg. And so it broke it down chemically and dissolved it. And if you were to put tons and tons of acid in your mouth, like let's say you were just drinking nothing but vinegar all the time, you'd have some problems with your teeth. Your enamel of your teeth, which it's made of calcium, as a big component, would start to break down. Another application of that is this really heavy rock that I have here. This is a piece, it's called karst, K-A-R-S-T. And this is actually a rocky material that is part of the bedrock of the state of Florida, which is where I live. And karst is made of limestone, which is ancient, old coral reefs, thousands of years old, that have died over the years, and then the land formed over it. And it is mostly calcium carbonate, and so, which is what the shells of coral animals are. And so if you were to take a piece, this is a small piece that broke off and I saved it so we could do this just demonstration. I've got some vinegar and I'm going to put it in just a mason jar here. And I want you to watch what happens when we soak our karst, which is mostly calcium carbonate, or lime it's called, in the vinegar. And what you're going to start to see, I don't know if you can see that really well, is it instantly starts producing bubbles. Can you guys see that? There you go. Now you can see that. See the bubbles forming? This is actually the karst breaking down. So the calcium carbonate bedrock is broken down. And so that's why acid rain is not such a great thing, because acid rain breaks apart rocks that are made up of calcium carbonate. And in extreme conditions, you get something called sinkholes, which is what we sometimes have in Florida as well. We don't have them all over the place, but we do have them occasionally. And that's because we get over time this buildup. You can see it's still bubbling, and this actually will continue. If I leave this in here, I'll leave it in here overnight, and when we get back together again tomorrow, you'll see what happens to this tiny little piece of calcium carbonate. So just like that, you have to be careful about your teeth, because our teeth are made up of calcium carbonate as well as other minerals, but that calcium carbonate can very easily get broken down if we're eating too many acids in our diet or holding a lot. Like a lot of people like to bite on limes or lemons and just sit there with the lime. That's not a good idea. You can have it, but just wash your mouth out afterwards, because what you're doing is you're breaking apart the calcium carbonate and enamel of your teeth, and that can weaken them. And again, we only get our baby teeth and our adult teeth, and that's it. And you don't want what happened to this poor little egg to happen to you guys, okay? And so you can try these things at home. So I've given you a couple things. Take that cracker, stick it in your mouth, chew on it. Don't swallow it, let it sit on your tongue, and notice how it gets sweet. And then if you want to break apart that egg too. But now we're going to make a craft. I always want to do some sort of tangible thing you can do. And so what we're going to do is we're going to make a mouth. And so I had just an old shirt box from a present. See, you get this like shirt box. You can use an Amazon box. You can use whatever. If you have a piece of poster board, you can use a piece of poster board or cardstock taped together. Whatever you have. This is what I happen to have. And so I want to make a mouth. And so what I did was I cut my box into this oval shape with two ends like this. Can you see how I have it like this? And I did a portion of it already so that it's not going to take us hours to do this. And then we are going to put some teeth on here. I'm going to talk about the different kinds of teeth. So what I have here is, remember when I painted earlier, I painted my teeth. I want to first put a tongue in just because I want to make it look nice. So I have a piece of red paper. I'm going to just cut a curve. And you guys could do this as part of a science fair project. You could do it as part of a school project. You can learn about the different types of teeth that other organisms have, which organisms have teeth, what their teeth shapes are like. We made dolphin teeth a while ago, and those dolphin teeth are cone shaped. So, and we talked about that. We talked about shark's teeth. Oh, it's not quite. Let me narrow it down a little bit more. I want to make it fit, since I'm kind of eyeballing this. All right, so here's my tongue. I'm going to stick it in here. And so what I have are three basic types of teeth. Because we're omnivores, we have teeth for tearing, we have teeth for biting, and we have teeth for chewing. And so I want to make all three of those shaped teeth to put in our mouths. And so I already did what you can see here, the lower jaw right here. These are going to be my molars. And if I had a larger piece of cardboard, I would definitely give us much more molars, because we have more than just one set on the bottom and the top. And then these pointy ones, these are our canines. And then these are going to be our incisors, so when we bite, the ones we bite from. And so all I'm doing is, once I've got my pieces that are painted, I'm going to hot glue them in place. So I'm going to take my molar. This is the bottom of the water bottle. You guys see that? And I painted it on the inside. It's probably still a little wet, but that's okay. I'm just going to put a bead of hot glue around here. You could use regular glue. You can use tape, whatever you guys have on hand. This is not to make you have to feel like you got to go out and buy something, because we don't want you to have to do that if you don't have to. And then I've got these, the top of my water bottle. Those are my my eye teeth or canine teeth or whatever the common name. They're pointy and they are great for tearing. And then I'm going to take this other one and just show you how I made this one happen. Okay, this is the water bottle center, and I cut a line through it here, and then I'm just gonna fold it tight like that. I'm gonna glue it closed. Again, it's still a little bit wet, but that's okay. I want to glue it so that it stays folded in half like this. And actually I want to cut it a little shorter. Let's see. That's better, maybe a little bit more. Okay. And then, well, it's not glued all the way. Let me add some more glue. And then I'm going to, these are the harder ones to do, these incisors, because they're kind of just pointy. But I was trying to figure out some way for us to make a giant mouth model so that we have something to talk about, we can see it, something to make, keep us busy, and actually learn from. So I'm gonna set this just like that for now so it doesn't tip. Or maybe it's gonna stay. Anyway, okay, so here's my mouth. And you can see we have incisors. The incisors in the front, these are the top and bottom teeth in the front. Those are for biting hard, okay? They're flat, but they're also very narrow. And it's kind of like scissors where they're flat and a wide area. And so that's for biting into, like if you're gonna bite into your sandwich. But if your sandwich has something very tough in it, what do you instantly do when you want to get that bite? You go to the side and you kind of tear a little bit with these two pointy canine teeth. These canine teeth are so we can tear. Organisms that are just basically carnivores that swallow their food whole will have mostly teeth shaped like that for biting and tearing or holding and swallowing whole. And then what we have on the end here, these right here are our molars, flat top for chewing. So humans will bite into their food or tear a bit if they need to and then chew it up. And as we chew it up, then we swallow our food. So it's mechanically broken down, physically broken down into smaller bits, as well as our saliva from our salivary glands that start to do chemical digestion right away. As soon as we put it in our mouth, those will digest carbohydrates and start to break them down into sugars. And so digestion starts right when you stick something in your mouth, and it moves it, and once you've chewed it up and broken it down both physically and chemically, then you swallow it and it goes to the stomach for more digestion. So have fun with this. Let me know if you have, if you did the cracker thing, if you've made some mouths, share your mouths with me. Take some photos and put them in the comments here. I'd love to hear what you learned. I'd love to hear if you have any questions. And we are going to continue talking about the human body for the next couple of times that we meet. And so hopefully you enjoyed this episode. Have fun with this. Use what you've got. There's lots of things you can do for fun and for education to pass the time, but doing it in a productive way. So thank you all for joining me. I had a great time. I look forward to seeing you guys tomorrow.